In this video, I'm going to be talking about all the movies that I watched in May. I'm going to give my thoughts, my ratings, what was worth watching, and what wasn't. So the first movie I want to talk about is Michael. I've been excited about this one since the trailer was released, because I'm a really huge Michael Jackson fan. I remember having the Michael Jackson game on the Wii. I would watch his music videos all the time. I even had the glove they used to sell at Disneyland. So Jafar Jackson, who is actually Michael Jackson's nephew, plays him in the movie. And he did a really good job imitating his choreography. He spent years getting the moves down to mirror Michael as closely as possible, and it really shows in the movie. The movie covers the first half of his musical career, up through the Bad album. What shocked me the most though was finding out that some of the vocals in the movie was actually Jafar's real voice. Like I remember watching a TikTok about it and it was saying how it wasn't actually him, and it was actually Jafar in some scenes, especially when he's recording in the studio, which I thought was really fucking cool. But that made it even more impressive. The whole movie was actually pretty good. I enjoyed it a lot. I gave it a 5 out of 5. Then the next movie I watched was Days of Heaven by Terrence Malick. It's a story of love and murder told through this voice of a child, and it's set in 1916. It's about this steel worker who leaves Chicago after he gets in a fight with his boss, and he takes his little sister and his girlfriend with him. It started off pretty good, but then I started to get a little bored after a while. But some of the shots were actually really good though, especially during the scenes where the sun was out. The cinematography was really nice. But in my opinion, Terrence Malick movies are kind of hit or miss for me, and this one wasn't too memorable, so I gave it a 3 out of 5. And then after that, I watched Beautiful Boy, which is a movie my girlfriend recommended to me, and we watched it together. It's about this teen who has a bright future, but his meth addiction gets in the way and starts destroying his life. And then throughout the movie, you can see his dad try to save him and does everything he can to get his son back on track. And this is the first movie I've seen where Steve Carell isn't trying to be funny, and he does a really good job in it. Timothy Chalamet too. There's this scene where he meets up with his dad saying he needs help, but really all he wants is just money to go buy some more meth. And the way he plays that feels really accurate to how addiction really works. Personally, I find drug addiction movies interesting because they give you a real look into what people with addictions go through, especially if the actors or the director is talking from personal experience. So I gave this one a 4 out of 5, and I'd say I'd watch it again. And the next one I watched is Enemy with Jake Gyllenhaal. It's about this history professor with a normal life who finds out he has a doppelganger. And the doppelganger is an actor who kind of peaked. He's kind of like a D-list actor, I would say. But then they meet up and start getting curious about each other's lives, and then things start bleeding into each other in weird ways, and their lives kind of mix into each other's. It was a cool watch with a lot of interesting details, but I did have to watch a couple YouTube videos afterwards to kind of understand, like, kind of the hidden details of it. But it is the kind of movie where you finish it and you immediately need to look up like what it all meant. It was solid though. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. After that I watched Eddington. It's a A24 movie with Joaquin Phoenix, Emma Stone, and Pedro Pascal. It's about this small town getting ready for an election where the mayor and sheriff are both running against each other, and it gets a little intense. But then there's also this whole thing about a data center being built there in their own town, which I feel like they could have, I don't know, I'm kind of conflicted on that idea because I think the movie could have been better if it didn't try to stretch towards so many different themes at once, but I do think the second half was really good. But I don't have too much to say about it. It was a little long. Like I didn't really like the first half, but I liked a good amount of it. I would give it a 3.5 out of 5. And after that I watched The Lobster with Colin Farrell. It's about single people who stay at this hotel, and if they don't find a partner within 45 days, they get turned into an animal of their choice and released into the wild. And I like Colin Farrell, he's pretty good. He's really fucking good in The Penguin, so I was like, why not just watch this? His character in this wants to be a lobster if it comes to that, hence the name. But the whole premise of the movie is cool, like the idea is pretty interesting. I just think it got a little boring here and there. It's still a unique watch though, but I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. Then I watched Ford vs Ferrari with Christian Bale and Matt Damon. It's about this racer and car designer who work together for Ford to beat Ferrari in a race while dealing with kind of corporate pressure and stakes for both companies. I'm not a huge car person, but the races were actually really entertaining. Like you can feel what's at stake and how competitive that world is. Christian Bale shows his range in this movie, and I gave it a 4 out of 5. And then after that, I watched the new Star Wars movie, The Mandalorian and Grogu. This is actually the first Star Wars movie I've watched like in its entirety, because every other one I've tried to watch, I've just fallen asleep to. Like they're not bad movies. Like I'm not saying they suck, but I don't think they're those kinds of movies are for me. I just find them a little boring sometimes. But the world is pretty cool. And I watched this one in IMAX, but it kind of fits more as a show than an episode. It's kind of like a long episode from the Mandalorian and Grogu show, but that doesn't mean it was bad. Like I remember the first season of The Mandalorian coming out when this was like 2019. I watched a couple of the first episodes and it was pretty good. So I had the bare knowledge of what was going on. What I did like was that there wasn't too much lightsaber combat, and it had a cool story with Mandalorian. I did go in with the lowest expectations, and they were exceeded, so I think that's why I enjoyed it as much as I did. There's also reference to the Park Chan-wook film No Other Choice in it, the shot of someone holding a plant over their head, and I think it was a pretty cool detail. I'm pretty sure it wasn't like a reference to it, but I saw the comparison in that. Like I'm pretty sure it wasn't like they didn't mean to do that. But yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5. I think the reason a lot of people didn't like it is because there's already a show and the stakes weren't that high and they could have made any other Star Wars movie, but they went with Mandalorian and Grogu, which I get the criticism, but it was still a pretty cool watch. And then after that I watched Chronicle with Michael B. Jordan. It's about these 3 high schoolers who get superpowers and they start experimenting with them, but as they use them more, their darker intentions start taking over and influencing their actions. It was short but like pretty enjoyable. I think it's one of the more realistic portrayals of superpowers because there's no plot armor. They still have their powers, but they're still vulnerable, and they can still also die. And it's also a found footage movie, and one of the characters uses telekinesis to move the camera around instead of holding it himself, which I thought was a really creative detail. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 because I think it could have gone a little deeper into what superpowers actually do to you mentally, but I'm not opposed to bumping that up on a rewatch. Now next is Goodfellas. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, as you may already know. So this was just a rewatch. I actually watched this on my trip to Oregon when the power went out at our Airbnb, and I was chilling next to my friend who drove us there while he was napping. And if you don't know what it's about, it follows this kid who grew up around the Italian mafia, and he looked up to them. He climbs his way into the like under their wings, and everything about it is just perfect. It goes by so fast. Just to keep it short, it's just the soundtrack, the acting, the scenes, everything. Like I rated it a 5 out of 5. And then I wanted to watch some more Martin Scorsese, so I rewatched Casino right after that. And it was on Netflix. It was about to go away in like 2 days. So I was like, oh, I need to watch it. But it's such a good movie. I think it's better than Goodfellas in one specific way, and that's the theme. The whole casino, Las Vegas lifestyle is done perfectly. It's basically Goodfellas, but in Vegas to keep it simple. And I also rated that one a 5 out of 5. Then I watched Anora, and I knew nothing about that one going in. So it's about this girl who meets this young rich client and tries to get out of her situation by marrying him. And also she's a prostitute. So it's kind of like a Cinderella story. But once his parents find out, like, they're getting married, they do everything in their power to stop the marriage. So the lead is, I don't know if it's Mikey or Mickey. I think it's Mickey. Mickey Madison was really good in this role. The movie does this thing where it keeps both her world and her husband's life hidden from the viewer for a while, and you're kind of piecing it together as you go. But I'm not sure how I feel about that choice, but it was pretty interesting. Like, it's not a super deep or groundbreaking movie, but it's an enjoyable watch. It was maybe a little too long for what it was representing, but I didn't really have too much to say about it, so I give it a 4 out of 5. And lastly was Mother by Bong Joon-ho. It's about this mom who lives with her son, and after a girl in town is found murdered, her son gets charged with it. Then she makes it her mission to prove his innocence. What I like about this movie is it does a good job tricking the viewer into thinking a certain way about the characters early on, and then flipping that later on with some good twists. And it does shed a lot of light on ignorance, like ignorance is bliss. Like that's kind of one of the themes of that movie, which I found was pretty cool. And I rated that one a 4 out of 5. If you like these kind of videos, let me know. And I can definitely do another one of these in the future. Or just let me know what kind of videos you want me to make, and I'll keep that in mind. But that's all the movies I watched last May. But yeah, that's all. Later.